Hello, supply chain friends. So, since I've started posting my content on supply chain on this channel, I have gotten a lot of questions from fresh graduates and experienced professionals about how we can enter the supply chain profession. And I get all sorts of questions. Do I need an MBA? And things like I've been working for 5 years in banking, I've been working for 7 years as a mechanical engineer, and things like that. So I decided to make a two-part video series to answer these types of questions, where in the first part, which you can watch by clicking over here, I covered the different ways in which you can enter the supply chain profession as a fresh graduate. And in this video, we will talk about how you can do the same thing as an experienced professional. My name is Jamil Hai, and I've been working in supply chain management positions for the last 20 years. My mission is to help people like you build real life skills for your job and career that they don't teach you in college. And if you are preparing for a supply chain job interview anytime soon, you should definitely book a session with me, because I'm going to take your resume, the job description you're applying for, and based on the combination of those two, will give you some laser guided tips and tricks which will maximize your chances of success. So go ahead now and book your next session by clicking on the link on my LinkedIn profile. So in this video, I will cover with you 5 different routes you can take to enter supply chain as an experienced professional. And those 5 routes are: you can enter supply chain if you have experience in operations management, project management, IT or digital transformation jobs, finance and accounting, or if you are an engineer. But however, one thing which I really want to call out is that you need to have your why very clear, why you want to enter supply chain. Because unlike a fresh graduate who is just looking for a start in their career, and they are probably excited about the prospects of supply chain and they want to start a career in this industry, you have already got 2 or 3 years or sometimes even more years of experience under your belt. So what is that compelling reason? What is your why on why you want to enter supply chain? Do you think you can make more money? That could be a fair reason, because sometimes, let's say if you're working as an engineer in a very basic type of a job, then and then you don't see a lot of growth prospects in that particular industry, then I can probably excel more in supply chain because I like it, or I have got a lot of interest in that field. So that could be a reason, or there could be a number of different reasons, right? Supply chain jobs are very transferable. So here is another reason which you can think of, which is the good news about supply chain is that those jobs are very similar whether you are doing them in Australia or in Saudi Arabia or in India or in the US or in Canada, right? So the skills are very transferable. So if you want to have an international career, that could be a reason. So the point is, have your why very clear, because unless your why is clear or your reason to move to supply chain is clear, I think you are missing a fundamental point. So do your soul searching around it, have your reasons ready, and then if you are convinced with your reasons that, okay, these are the 2 or 3 reasons why I want to supply chain, then you go for it. So the first route to enter supply chain for experienced professionals is through operations management. I recently got a question from a store manager of one of the McDonald's branches, I think in the US. And he was asking me that I've been doing this store manager job for one of the McDonald's branches for the last, God knows, 2 years. And can I enter the core supply chain industry? And I absolutely said yes, because you are an ideal candidate to make a switch into supply chain, because you have already done a lot of basics of supply chain by doing this job. If you think about it, if you're a store manager, let's say you are running a McDonald's branch or you're running a Pizza Hut branch or something like that, you have already done things like inventory management. You know how to manage people, you know the fluctuations in demand that happen with the consumers and so on. So a lot of common themes that you also see in more senior and more complex supply chain jobs, you are already exposed to that. So if you are a store manager, whether in a restaurant branch or you are working in any other store, let's say in retail, you could be a very good candidate to apply for supply chain jobs, because you have done a lot of those things, both technically and also on the human skill side. So one of the things I also covered in my previous video was the top 6 skills you need to be successful in supply chain, and one of those skills was problem solving. And as a store manager, once again, you are problem solving on a daily basis, because every single day you might face a difficult customer, you might have an out of stock situation with suppliers coming in. So therefore, if you are an operations manager or you are working in that operations management environment, then you are in a very good position to enter supply chain. The next route of entering supply chain is through project management. So if you are a project manager and you are currently working in project management with different industries and you are thinking about coming into supply chain, then what you should do is maybe if you're working on a contract job, that's probably easier because then you're working on different projects all the time. Try to get your next couple of projects on in a supply chain project, right? Because that will give you a lot of good opportunity to learn about the basics of supply chain, the cost service cash triangle, and a lot of other things that we covered in the score model. So that will be a very good way for you to get exposure to supply chain. But the reason why I'm saying project managers are such good candidates to move to supply chain is because by doing project management or by excelling at it, once again, you have learned some of those very critical skills which are needed in the supply chain professional as well. For example, risk management. As a project manager, you are managing risk all the time. Another thing which you learn as a project manager is people management, because you are almost like that person who is herding the cats in a project, right? Because you're trying to just put the whole piece together. So that's another thing that you learn. The third thing that you learn as a good project manager is stakeholder management, because as a project manager, you are communicating with all different types of people in different organizations, right? So you might be working with external consultants, you might be working with testers or key users in an organization, but at the same time, you may also be asked to come and give presentations to the board and the senior leadership about how the project is going. So you have got all those skills of stakeholder management at senior level, middle level, and at the individual contributor entry level jobs as well. And therefore, as a project manager, by sharpening your skills in some of these areas, you definitely become a very good candidate for supply chain jobs. Now let's talk about the third route of getting into supply chain, and that is the route of IT jobs. So if you are an IT professional, then you have a very good chance to move or maneuver your career into supply chain by once again trying to find some IT projects or some IT work related to supply chain. In one of my recent podcasts, I talked to my guest about how AI is shaping the world of supply chain. And one of the things she mentioned, rightfully so, is that the IT jobs and supply chain jobs are merging. So even 5, 6 years ago, there was always this divide between supply chain and IT, where IT would have their own uh, policies, procedures, and their own agendas, and then supply chain would have their own agendas, and there will always be this clash. But now, with so much technology getting integrated into supply chain, those IT jobs and supply chain jobs are almost merging together. I just have a recent experience of this myself, where I'm leading a transformation project for my company, and I cannot do my job in that project without being in lockstep with my IT counterpart. Therefore, the IT teams have a great opportunity to learn more about supply chain, and likewise, supply chains have a great opportunity to get educated on technologies. So, if you're an IT manager and you have a desire to move to core supply chain jobs, then you have a very good shot at this. What you need to do is just try to find ways where you can get more exposed to the IT side of supply chain, because you might be working in a very different area of IT or digital transformation, right? But if you get more exposed to, let's say, technologies like warehouse management systems or order management systems or ERPs or planning systems, APSs, things like that, because these are all the backbones of any supply chain. So if you even have exposure to any of these types of systems, then you have a very good pathway into a supply chain career. Next route to enter supply chain is through finance, because if you are in finance, especially in the more operational side of finance, like if you are managing the finance department for a factory, or you're kind of working as a co-pilot with supply chain in a finance role, then you have already understood half of supply chain, to be very honest, especially the cost side of the equation, which, by the way, a lot of even experienced supply chain managers struggle a lot with. So you have an edge because you really understand that COGS model really well, the cost of goods model, which I covered in one of my previous videos too. And then you also understand the P&L. And the P&L understanding is so important. If you want to ever become a successful supply chain manager, or if you have a dream of becoming a supply chain director at some point in time in your career, you cannot do this without understanding the P&L of your organization, because that really helps you build that business context. You can never be successful in supply chain if you just understand the technical side really well, but you don't understand the business side. Which products are getting us more profitability over the others, which assets are more efficient than the others. So you really need to understand that cost side of the equation. So if you are coming into supply chain from finance, you have already ticked that box, and therefore finance and accounting professionals become very good candidates to move to supply chain if they choose to. And finally, one of the best routes to enter supply chain is for engineers. And I covered this in my previous video as well, because I talked about how fresh graduate engineers can apply for supply chain jobs. But even that applies to experienced engineers. So if you have, and I get this question a lot, by the way, I think in the last 3 weeks, I've got this question 4 times, that I'm a mechanical engineer with 3 years of experience, I'm an electrical engineer with 4 years of experience, or I'm a computer systems engineer with 5 years of experience. Can I enter supply chain? And my answer to all those 3 individuals was yes, you can, because like I covered in the previous video, engineering teaches you analytical ability, and to a large extent, engineering also teaches you the art of problem solving. And these two, problem solving and analytical thinking, are two of those 6 critical skills I covered in my previous video, which are the pivotal skills to be successful in any supply chain job. So as an engineer, you have already got those two. So if you are already working in an engineering company, let's say you are working in an engineering department in a factory, then you have a very good shot at moving to supply chain if you want to do that, because a lot of times engineers have their own careers, right? So you can be an OEM expert engineer, let's say in the manufacturing space for a certain industry, let's say in ice cream manufacturing, and you can build a full career being that, right? But if you have 2 or 3 years of experience as an engineer in a job like that, and you want to move to supply chain, then maybe you need to talk to the supply chain people in that organization and think about what is the different route you could take and enter supply chain if you choose to do that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And after watching this video, if you have really made up your mind that you want to pursue a supply chain career, I've got good news for you, because I have made a video on the top 5 free supply chain courses, and also the top 5 supply chain jobs in 2025, which you can watch by clicking over here. Keep watching.